Before we begin tonight's story, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a single moment, just one, where life cracked open and revealed a truth you weren't ready to see? A moment that changed not what you have, but who you are. This is the kind of story that starts quietly, with a hardworking father, a sick little girl, and a simple question asked at the wrong place on the wrong day. But what follows is a journey no one in that building ever expected. Take a breath, settle in, and let this story unfold the way life often does, slowly at first, then all at once. The old alarm clock on Evan Cole's nightstand didn't ring so much as rattle an uneven metallic tremor that cut through the cold pre-dawn air like a reminder life wasn't waiting on him. The winter wind pressed against the thin apartment windows, leaking through the frame with a soft, needling hiss. Evan heard it before he even opened his eyes. He always did. He lay still for a moment, listening to the familiar symphony of his mornings, the ticking clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator that struggled to stay alive, the slow creak in his spine as he shifted beneath worn blankets. That small crackle of pain had become his unofficial wake-up call. Another night gone, he thought, and another day I've got to find a way through. He sat up, rubbed warmth into his stiff hands, then swung his feet onto the cold floor. The air bit at his skin so sharply it felt personal. Winter, in this side of town, always felt personal. From the hallway, he heard a soft cough, a tiny, strained breath that tightened every muscle in his chest. "Lily," he whispered. No answer. Just another wheeze, higher this time. Evan stood immediately, grabbing his blue janitor coverall from the chair. The fabric was still damp from last night's shift, carrying the sharp scent of disinfectant he could never quite wash out. He pulled it on anyway, zipping it up as he moved toward the small bedroom down the hall. Lily lay curled under a stack of blankets, her tiny body rising and falling in uneven rhythms. Even in the dim room, Evan could hear the roughness in her breath, like someone rubbing sandpaper inside a flute. He sat on the edge of the bed and touched her forehead lightly. Warm. Too warm. She opened her eyes halfway. "Dad." "I'm here, sweetheart," he murmured. He tried to keep his voice steady. "Calm. Strong. Just checking on you." Lily gave the smallest smile, then drifted again. Evan waited until her breathing softened, then slipped into the kitchen. He reached for the inhaler box on the counter, half empty. The clinic had warned him last month they were running out of the cheaper prescription. When his phone buzzed on the table, the vibration sounded like a warning siren in the quiet room. He answered. "This is Evan." A nurse's voice greeted him gently, too gently. "Mr. Cole, this is Riverside Clinic. I'm calling about Lily's medication. The old prescription isn't available anymore. She'll need the new controller inhaler. Insurance will cover part of it, but not all." How much is not all? Silence. Papers shuffling. A hesitant sigh. A few hundred out of pocket each month. I'm sorry. A few hundred might as well have been a few thousand. Evan closed his eyes. She needs it, right? She does. It'll help her breathing long term. And winter's the worst season for children with her condition. "Okay," he whispered. "Thank you." When he hung up, the apartment seemed even colder. He turned and froze. A bright orange envelope was taped crookedly to the front door. The kind of envelope no tenant ever wanted to see. He didn't need to open it. He'd seen enough of them this year. Final eviction notice. His breath left him in a single stunned exhale. Not now, he begged silently. Not with her breathing like that. Not when we're already holding everything together with duct tape and prayer. He peeled the paper from the door, carefully, not wanting the sound to wake Lily. Each rip of tape echoed like a countdown. For a long moment he stood alone in the kitchen, hearing nothing but the thinning whistle of his daughter struggling for air in the next room. His mind raced. What can I sell? What can I pawn? He reached for the small shoebox of papers above the fridge and dumped it on the table. Bills, late notices, a folded crayon drawing from Lily, a warranty for a toaster he no longer owned. And then an unopened envelope. Heavy, high-quality paper, Embossed. Ward's Financial Group. He frowned. Months ago, someone in a suit had handed it to him outside the bus depot claiming it was important. He'd assumed it was some scam targeting people who looked desperate. He tore it open. Inside was a sleek black card. Metal. Weighty. His name etched in silver letters. Evan Cole. And beneath it, a single line. For balance inquiries, please visit Ward Financial Headquarters. Evan stared at it for nearly a full minute. Balance, he muttered. Yeah, my balance right now is about $34. But then another cough from Lily's room. A tight one. The kind that meant real trouble. He clenched the card. What if it's not a scam? What if it's the 1 ounce of luck I get this decade? He grabbed his coat, slipped the eviction notice into his pocket, and tucked the black card deep into his coverall. Outside, the morning air slashed across his cheeks. He inhaled sharply. The first bus wasn't running yet, so he walked boots crunching on frozen pavement wind, pushing against him like a test he hadn't studied for. Each exhale fogged in front of him, reminding him he was running out of time. Ward Financial Headquarters rose from the city like a monument of steel and money, its glass panels catching the faint morning hum of traffic. The automatic doors whooshed open, releasing the warm, polished air of a world he was never meant to enter. Evan stepped inside. The lobby floor hummed under moving footsteps. He heard the distant clicking of designer heels, the tapping of keyboards, the muffled tone of people who had never chosen between rent and medication. A receptionist glanced at his coverall faded blue stained from years of bleach, and her voice softened into polite dismissal. Sir, the public branch is down the street. I think I have a card here. His hand shook slightly as he showed it. Her expression shifted. Confusion first, then something sharper. She hesitated. Behind them, a group of investors walked through, confident, loud, amused by everything. At their center was Amelia Ward, CEO, brisk footsteps, clipped tone, a voice he recognized from commercials promising integrity and innovation. She caught a glimpse of Evan and didn't try to hide her smirk. Someone walk him to the correct branch, she said lightly. Looks like he got turned around. A few investors chuckled. Evan swallowed hard. Ma'am, I just want to check my balance. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Amelia paused, then almost theatrically she stepped closer, her heels tapping like punctuation marks. Fine, she said. Let's check it right here. She ran the black card through the reader. The machine beeped once, then again. The screen began to load. Every sound in the lobby seemed to hush, like the air itself was holding its breath. The progress bar inched forward. Amelia leaned in. Smirk fading, eyes narrowing. Then her jaw dropped a fraction. Eyes widened. One hand gripped the counter. A soft, electronic ding echoed through the marble lobby. For a moment, no one in the marble lobby breathed. The screen's glow reflected faintly against Amelia Ward's face, washing out the confident angles she carried like armor. Her eyes, usually sharp, calculating always 2 steps ahead, froze on the numbers flickering before her. A soft electronic tone rang out again, a confirmation chime, gentle, inevitable. Amelia blinked, once, twice. She leaned closer as if proximity might somehow rewrite the truth. Available balance 18,024,713.56 USD. The Evelyn Ward Trust for Evan Cole and issue. The line pulsed on screen like a heartbeat. Behind her, one of the junior analysts attempted a shaky laugh, probably a system glitch. That happens sometimes. But his voice cracked on the last word, betraying a fear the system was working exactly as it should. Evan stood on the other side of the counter, hands clasped tightly, unable to see the display from where he stood. He studied Amelia's expression, how her breath stalled, how her shoulders locked. He swallowed. So, is there enough? For my daughter's medicine? His voice was soft, hopeful, raw, too honest for a place with floors polished enough to reflect people's pretenses back at them. A few employees shifted uncomfortably. Something in the way he said daughter's medicine punctured the polished air. Amelia didn't answer. She was too busy fighting her own pulse, too busy trying to control her face from cracking under the avalanche of implications. Her mother's name. The trust title. The number, $18 million. And all of it tied to a janitor in a faded blue coverall. No, this can't be right. Mother wouldn't. She couldn't. But Amelia felt it, a cold, sinking weight in her gut. A memory, a shadow, a ghost wearing her mother's perfume and gentle reprimands. She straightened her spine, disguising panic as authority. "This may be an error," she announced loud enough for the lobby to hear. "We'll place the account under temporary review until we can investigate." The receptionist hesitated. "Miss Ward, should we freeze it?" Amelia snapped. "Now." A beep confirmed the lock. Evan's stomach tightened. "Wait, freeze, I don't understand." His voice cracked. "I don't know what that account even is. I'm just trying to get my daughter's medication. We can't release funds until the discrepancy is resolved," Amelia replied, her voice clipped and cold. "Please follow compliance for verification." Her tone had the crispness of a blade. Two security officers gestured toward a side hallway. Evan hesitated, then followed. He didn't protest, didn't fight. He looked like a man who'd been punched too many times in life to be shocked by another blow. In the small conference room, a compliance officer began his scripted questions, each one more humiliating than the last. "Do you have any ties to Ward financial personnel? Any involvement with criminal organizations?" "No." "Can you explain the origin of these funds? I've never seen $18 million in my life. I clean bus stations and storage rooms. I don't know anything about that money." His breaths grew harder as the interrogation went on. His phone vibrated repeatedly in his pocket, buzzing against the metal chair leg. "I need to check that," he whispered. "Phones stay off during review. It might be my daughter's school." His voice tightened. "Or the neighbor watching her. Please, just let me, sir. We haven't cleared you yet." They kept going. Question after question. A man terrified for reasons far bigger than money. High above, in the executive hallway overlooking the lobby, James Morales, silver-haired, calm. A man whose presence carried the weight of forgotten history had watched the entire spectacle unfold. He'd seen the look on Amelia's face when she read the screen. He'd heard the quiet desperation in Evan's voice, and he felt something old stir inside him. Something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since Evelyn Ward's funeral. Guilt, memory, recognition. He stepped away from the railing and took out his phone. Downstairs, the compliance officer finally sighed. "You may answer your phone now." Evan snatched it up with a trembling hand. The voicemail played automatically. A nurse's voice came through tight, urgent trembling. "Mr. Cole, this is Riverside Hospital. Lily had a severe asthma attack at school. She's stable for now, but we need a guardian to authorize treatment. Please come immediately. Don't delay." The world spun. Evan shot to his feet. His chair scraped the floor with a screech that cut through the tiny room. "I have to go," he said, breathless. "My daughter's in the ER." "Sir, we still have." But he was already gone, running down the hall footsteps, pounding against tile flooring like a man racing time itself. Meanwhile, Amelia paced inside her office, heels clicking sharply against the quiet glass chamber. She had pulled up internal archives, vast, encrypted, heavily protected. She typed her mother's name. Then trust accounts. Files populated her screen, some familiar, some dusty from years of being untouched. One folder blinked with a red tag for Amelia. Only if activated. Her throat tightened. She hovered over it, fingers trembling. "What did you do, Mother?" she whispered. The folder demanded a password. Her breath caught. She typed her birth date. The lock turned green. A soft ding signaled the file opening. And then her mother's voice filled the room. Warm, tired, weighted with a kind of love Amelia hadn't let herself hear in years. "If you're reading this, sweetheart, it means the man you just humiliated is the man who once saved my life." Amelia's knees nearly buckled. The letter-continued voice cracking through the speakers like a ghost tapping on her ribcage. But before the chapter revealed a single detail, more James's number flashed across her phone, and she answered with a shaking breath. He spoke quietly. "Amelia, Lily is in the ICU, and Evan is on his way there now. If that account is legitimate, freezing it today may cost them more than dignity." Her heart pounded. Down in the street, a siren wailed somewhere in the distance. The ambulance sirens had stopped by the time Evan reached the hospital, but the echo of them still rang in his ears as he burst through the sliding doors. The antiseptic scent hit him instantly, sharp, cold, familiar in all the wrong ways. Machines beeped somewhere down the hall, steady and indifferent, like the ticking of a clock that didn't care how terrified a father might be. "ICU is this way," a nurse directed, sensing his panic before he could speak. He followed the sound before the signs rushed, breathing soft coughs, the frantic thud of his own heart pounding in his chest. His boots squeaked against the sterile floor, each step louder than the last. When he saw her, his breath left him. Lily lay on a narrow hospital bed, a small oxygen mask covering half her delicate face. Her chest rose and fell in tight, shallow pulls. Every breath sounded like it cost her something. "Daddy." Her voice rasped through the mask, tiny, strained. He knelt beside her bed, hands trembling as he brushed her hair back. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." The machine beside her clicked and hummed its soft, rhythmic beeps, syncing with the uneven tremble of her lungs. Evan hated that sound. He'd heard it too many times since she was 3 years old. A doctor stepped in quietly. "Mr. Cole, she had a significant asthma exacerbation at school. We stabilized her, but she needs to stay for monitoring and start on the long-term controller medication. It's stronger, more reliable." Evan nodded, barely breathing. "Whatever she needs." The doctor hesitated just a second, but long enough for Evan to feel it. "The new medication is considerably more expensive." "I just want to prepare you. I'll figure it out," he said. "Just help her breathe." The doctor gave a slow nod and left the room, pulling the curtain closed behind him with a soft woof that felt heavier than it sounded. Evan leaned close to Lily's voice, low. "You scared me today." She blinked up at him. Did the card work, Daddy?" His throat tightened. "We're working on it." It wasn't a lie. It wasn't the truth either. It was the best he had. A few minutes later, a billing specialist approached. Her shoes clicked quietly against the floor, her voice gentle in the way people sound when they're trained to deliver bad news kindly. "Mr. Cole, we need a payment method for the initial treatment and overnight stay." He pulled out the black card, the one that hours ago had drawn Stare's suspicion shock, the one that held $18 million he couldn't touch. "Try this," he said. The woman typed, swiped, waited. A beep, then another, then a flat, merciless electronic tone. "Transaction declined. Account under review." The words felt like a punch to the ribs. Evan's grip tightened around the edge of the counter. "What? What does that mean?" "It says the account is temporarily frozen. Is there another method you'd like to use?" He let out a hollow breath. "If I had another method, I wouldn't be standing here." The woman's eyes softened with sympathy, but sympathy didn't change policy. "We can arrange a payment plan." "I'll pay it," he whispered. "I'll find a way. Just don't stop treating her." "Of course not," she assured. "Her care will continue. But we do need some form of—" He nodded quickly, cutting her off. "I'll get it, I promise." He felt eyes on him, the pitying kind, the frightened kind, the kind that lingered too long on a man who looks like he's unraveling. He curled his hands into fists and walked back to Lily's bedside. She reached for him, fingers small and cool. "Dad, everything okay?" He forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just rest." But inside, the truth roared, "Nothing is fine. Nothing is even close." He sat beside her bed, listening to the hiss of the oxygen, the brittle rasp in her breathing, a sound he knew too well, a sound that tore him open every time. He pressed his forehead to her hand and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. I should have been able to fix all this. Your mom would have known what to do." His voice cracked. Memories flickered Lily's mother laughing softly while folding laundry, rubbing her belly while talking to the baby inside, saying, "You're gonna be a great dad. You love too hard not to be." He swallowed hard. "I'm trying. God, I'm trying." The curtain rustled. A new presence stepped into the room. Evan expected another nurse. Instead, a quiet, steady voice spoke behind him. "Mr. Cole." He turned. James Morales stood there, dark coat-silver hairlines of concern etched deep around his eyes. He held no clipboard, no folder, no forced corporate smile. Only compassion. And something else. Something like regret. "Do you remember me from earlier?" James asked. "Yeah," Evan said cautiously. "You were in the lobby." James stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I've been with the Ward family for over 30 years. I saw what happened today. All of it." Evan didn't respond. He didn't trust himself to. James continued quietly. "I know the account was frozen. I know you needed that money for her." Evan pressed his lips tight. "Doesn't matter anymore. She's here. That's what's important." James studied him with the slow, pained gaze of a man seeing a reflection of someone he once knew. "She looks like a fighter, just like my old friend Evelyn." Evan blinked. "Evelyn? You mean—" James nodded. "Amelia's mother." Something in the air shifted. Even Lily stirred slightly, sensing tension. James lowered his voice further. "Mr. Cole, you deserve answers, and I believe Amelia's about to find some herself." Evan frowned. "What does that mean?" James placed a deliberate hand on his shoulder. "It means the freezing of your account was a mistake, a deeply unfortunate mistake, and one that needs to be fixed immediately." Before Evan could reply, his phone buzzed again this time, a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about the trust." A.W. James glanced at the screen, then exhaled slowly. She knows. Evan stared at the message, heart pounding, not with hope, not yet, but with the terrifying possibility of it. James squeezed his shoulder. "Stay with your daughter. I'll make sure this gets addressed." He stepped out the curtain, whispering shut behind him. Evan sat alone again, listening to Lily's fragile breaths, holding the phone with that short, sharp message glowing on the screen. The words pulsed like a signal, like a beginning, or a warning. "We need to talk about the trust." The hospital room dimmed as evening settled, the soft hum of the air vent mixing with Lily's steady but fragile breaths. Evan held her hand, his thumb brushing the back of her knuckles in a rhythm he hoped would soothe her. He didn't speak. He didn't dare break the quiet. It was the first hour her breathing had sounded even remotely steady. But miles away in a penthouse office where the city lights flickered against glass walls, another quiet was breaking open. Amelia Ward stood alone before the glowing computer screen, her mother's name highlighted at the top of an encrypted folder. For Amelia, only if activated. Her hands trembled again as she clicked on the audio file. For a beat, nothing happened. Then a soft crackle, a breath, a voice warm, tired, as familiar as Sunday mornings long gone. "If you're listening to this, sweetheart, it means the man you just humiliated is the man who once saved my life." The words hit Amelia like a slap she didn't see coming. Her knees weakened. She lowered herself into the leather chair, one hand pressed over her mouth. Her mother's voice continued, gentle yet unwavering. "You were too young to remember the accident. It was late. Raining hard. I lost control near the overpass. The car rolled, caught fire. I thought that was the end." The audio faded into a brief silence before Evelyn's voice returned thinner this time. "I didn't see his face clearly. Smoke, pain, the world tilting. but I remember strong arms pulling me out. I remember hearing him cough from the fumes, and then he disappeared before police or EMTs arrived. A sudden image crashed into Amelia's mind, the security footage from hours earlier. Evan, standing small and out of place beneath the marble lobby lights. His gentle voice, his fear for his daughter, his disbelief at the money he couldn't touch. Her mother spoke on each word landing with surgical precision. James tracked him down for me. His name was Evan Cole. He worked 2 jobs. His wife was pregnant at the time. Amelia's breath stuttered. He refused every attempt I made to thank him, every check, every offer. He said, "Use it for someone who needs it." I just did what anyone should do. Amelia felt heat behind her eyes, anger at herself, shame humming beneath her skin, and something she hadn't let herself feel in years, grief. She whispered, "Why didn't you tell me, Mom?" But the recording answered before she could finish. "You were so focused then, your career, your image, your place in the world. I worried telling you about Evan would make you see him as a burden instead of a blessing." A pause, a shaky inhale. "So I created the trust. 18 million. A thank you, yes, but also a test. My last one for you." Amelia's heartbeat quickened. She blinked hard, trying to steady her breathing. If one day Evan ever needed help, fate would push him into your world. And if that happened, I wanted to see who you'd become. Would you look at him through my eyes? Or through the eyes of the people who taught you power matters more than kindness? Amelia pressed her hand to her chest, trying to hold herself together. It didn't work. If you used your position to shame him, Evelyn's voice continued cracking with emotion, then everything I tried to teach you, everything I tried to build in this family would have meant nothing. Tears fell silently down Amelia's cheeks. She hadn't cried in years. Not real tears, not ones she couldn't swallow back down. Her mother's voice softened into its gentlest shape. "My darling girl, it's not too late to choose differently. Not too late to become someone you're proud of. Not too late to make this right." The audio clicked to an end. Silence reclaimed the office, loud, suffocating, heavy as a confession. Amelia closed her eyes, her mother's words looping again and again. "The man you humiliated is the man who once saved my life. My last test. Not too late." Her breath seized. She pressed her palms against her eyes, shoulders shaking. A single, quiet sob escaped her raw, unguarded, nothing like the immovable CEO the world knew. She had become exactly what her mother feared, and she hated it. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She ignored it at first, but the second vibration pushed her to check. A text from James Lilly is stable for now. Evan won't leave her side. The bills are overwhelming him. We need to talk. Amelia's heart clenched. Her mother had always urged her to look people in the eyes to see more than the surface. She hadn't looked at Evan at all. Not really. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark office window. Sharp, suit-cold posture, flawless makeup. A woman who'd learned how to be powerful but not how to be good. She whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." She stood abruptly, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Her voice steadied, quiet but resolute. Unfreeze the account, she told herself aloud. All of it. She grabbed her phone and dialed legal. "This is Amelia Ward. Remove the under review status on the Cole Trust immediately. And prepare documents for a board briefing. Tomorrow morning. Ms. Ward, this is highly irregular." "Do it," she said, her tone leaving no room for interpretation. "And send a car to the hospital." She ended the call before they could argue. Her mother's voice still echoed in her chest. Not too late. She grabbed her coat, started toward the elevator, then stopped. She turned back, looked at the empty chair, the dim office, the lingering warmth of her mother's recorded voice. "Mom," she whispered, "I won't fail the test." Outside, the night wind pushed against the glass tower, leaving a faint low whistle like a breath released. As Amelia stepped into the elevator, jaw set, eyes red but determined, a daughter finally listening, a mother's voice guiding her, and a promise forming in the dark. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning arrived quietly at Riverside Hospital. The heating vents hummed their steady breath, and Lily slept at last, her breathing no longer sharp, just soft and tired. Evan hadn't moved from the chair beside her all night. His back ached, his eyes burned, but he didn't dare drift off. Every small rasp from her chest pulled him alert again. Between those soft breaths he heard something else from the hallway, the distant tap of polished shoes, a rhythm too measured to belong to a nurse. He looked up just in time to catch a glimpse of Amelia Ward through the small glass window in the ICU door. But she didn't enter. She just stood there, hands in her coat pockets, shoulders drawn tight. Her breath fogged the small square of glass as she leaned slightly closer, watching father and daughter in a moment they never knew they were being seen. For a long heartbeat she simply stood there, silent, unmoving. Then she turned and walked away. Evan blinked, confused. Was that her? Why would she come here? He didn't have time to puzzle it out. Lily stirred in her sleep and he leaned closer, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. Dad's right here." Across town, the top floor of Ward Financial buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Members of the board filed into the executive conference room, voices sharp tension, thick complaints rising in volume. By the time Amelia entered the room, was already pulsing with disapproval. "Ms. Ward, this situation has spiraled beyond control. You froze an $18 million account, then unfroze it at 3 a.m. What is going on? We need clarity, and we need it now." Amelia lowered herself into the chair at the head of the glass table. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes trained on her, but she also felt something steadier inside her mother's voice echoing from last night. Not too late. She folded her hands on the table. "Let's begin." Caldwell, a senior board member with a voice like sandpaper, stood first. This level of exposure puts the bank at enormous reputational risk. A random janitor possessing an $18 million trust, it sounds like embezzlement, fraud, or negligence on our part. It wasn't negligence, Amelia said evenly. The trust was created by Evelyn Ward herself, my mother. That brought the room to a hush. Caldwell blinked. What several board members exchanged startled looks. Amelia continued. "It's legitimate, documented, legal, fully taxed. It was her personal directive, not tied to bank assets." Another director leaned forward. "But why a janitor?" She met his gaze. "Because he saved her life." Those 5 words rippled through the room like a dropped stone. She explained succinctly, clearly, the accident, the anonymous rescue, the refusal of payment, the trust her mother founded as repayment and as a quiet legacy. When she finished, silence hung heavy for several seconds. Then Caldwell scoffed. "All due respect, Ms. Ward. We are a financial institution, not a charity. An $18 million disbursement to a laborer, publicly no less, sets a dangerous precedent. People will expect handouts." Amelia's jaw tightened. "It wasn't a handout. It was a thank you. We should at least reassign the funds," another member argued. "Place them under a controlled philanthropic division. Frame this as community outreach, something safe. Something we can manage." "Meaning," Amelia said, voice firm, "you want to take the trust away from the man it was created for." No one answered, but the silence said enough. She took a breath. "If we do that, we violate internal policy state law, donor intent, and the legacy of the woman who built this institution. If my mother were alive, she'd be appalled." A middle-aged director tapped a pen nervously. "Then why did you freeze the account in the first place?" It was the question she'd been expecting and dreading. Her voice dropped no longer icy or defensive, but painfully honest. "Because I saw him through the wrong lens. I saw a janitor standing in a marble lobby and assumed he didn't belong." The room stilled. Several board members avoided eye contact. That was my mistake, Amelia continued, and the single greatest failure of my career. She exhaled slowly. I intend to fix it. A woman near the far end of the table spoke, her tone softening. And how exactly do you plan to fix it? Amelia looked up, eyes steady. By honoring the trust. Fully, transparently, with public accountability. Murmurs rose again. Caldwell slammed a file shut. We cannot turn this bank into a human interest charity binge. We should minimize exposure, get ahead of the narrative, make the janitor sign an NDA. No, Amelia said sharply. We have to protect ourselves. We do, she agreed, by doing the right thing. That earned a few raised eyebrows. She continued, This isn't just about optics. It's about who we choose to be. We can spin this into a story about compliance failure. Or, she paused, letting tension hang a moment. We can make this a story about integrity. A younger member of the board spoke up. What do you propose? Amelia's shoulders straightened. A public apology. In the lobby where I humiliated him. Caldwell nearly choked. That's absurd. A CEO apologizing to a janitor. She met his outrage with calm resolve. A CEO apologizing to a man her mother trusted. In public, on record. More murmurs, chairs shifting, a storm gathering. But before they could object further, her phone vibrated. A brief text from James appeared. He agreed to come. Bring clarity. Bring humility. Amelia slid the phone aside. She looked each board member in the eye. We aren't choosing between public shame and public approval. We're choosing between being the kind of institution my mother built, or the one she feared we'd become. Someone exhaled sharply. Someone else whispered, She sounds like Evelyn. Finally, reluctantly, the board voted. Not unanimously, not joyfully. But enough. The apology would happen. Meanwhile, Evan walked slowly through the hospital corridor holding Lily's hand as they made their way toward the exit for a short break. She still breathed through her mask, but her steps were steadier today. His phone buzzed again. A message from James. We'd like you and Lily to come in. Amelia wants to explain everything. Evan stared at the screen. His pulse quickened. He didn't know whether this was hope or trouble. Probably both. But Lily squeezed his fingers. Daddy, we can go. I'm okay. He nodded, swallowing hard. Okay, baby. Let's see what they have to say. Evan, still in his blue coverall, holding his daughter's small hand as they stepped through the towering glass doors of Ward Financial for the second time. The lobby buzzed with whispers. Camera crews adjusted their microphones. A podium waited beneath the marble archway. And the question hung in the air. This time, would the world see them differently? The marble floors of Ward Financial felt colder the second time Evan stepped inside. The lobby's acoustics swallowed every footstep, every whisper, every shifting breath. People had gathered, employees lining the balcony above a handful of clients lingering near the entrance, several reporters with soft murmurs floating between them. Lily's small hand gripped his. She looked around wide-eyed behind her oxygen mask, trying to make sense of the spectacle. Evan bent slightly. Just stay close to me, sweetheart. We'll be okay. She nodded, squeezing tighter. A hush cut through the space as Amelia Ward emerged from an elevator at the far end of the lobby. Her heels clicked against the polished stone, slow, deliberate, almost hesitant. She wasn't dressed in corporate armor today. Her suit was simple, her hair pulled back, her expression bare in a way no one in this building had ever seen. James followed a step behind her face, calm but watchful. A small podium stood beneath the tall columns at the center of the lobby. A microphone waited. The hum of the building's ventilation filled the otherwise silent air. When Amelia reached the podium, she looked out across the lobby not with superiority, not with indifference, but with the heavy awareness of someone who understood exactly how many eyes were judging her at this moment. Her voice, when she finally spoke, didn't echo with CEO confidence. It was quieter. Human. "Thank you for gathering," she began. "I asked you all here because a week ago, I made the worst mistake of my career." Murmurs rippled faintly, then faded. Last week, a man walked into this lobby, a father desperate to help his sick child. A man who works through the night cleaning the places most of us never stop to consider. She paused, breath shaking slightly, and I laughed at him. The words hung in the air like a confession from the pulpit. Amelia turned toward Evan. He felt every eye shift with her. His throat tightened. Quietly, audibly, she said, "Mr. Cole, I humiliated you. I stripped you of dignity you never owed me in the first place. Not because of anything you did, but because I saw your clothes before I saw your humanity." A soft gasp sounded somewhere in the crowd. Someone else murmured, "She's really doing this," Amelia continued. "And worst of all, my mother Evelyn Ward trusted you long before I did. She trusted you with her life." Evan blinked. His grip on Lily's hand slackened. Amelia spoke clearly, voice firming with each word. "My mother created a trust in your name, Mr. Cole. $18 million intended to thank you for saving her after a terrible accident. Instead of honoring that, I froze your account and prevented you from getting your daughter the care she needed." Her voice wavered. She pressed a hand lightly to the podium. "That mistake will follow me for a long time. And it should." She turned fully toward him again. "So today, here in the lobby where I wronged you, I want to say this as clearly as possible. I'm sorry. Not because of the money, not because of the scandal, but because you are a good father. And I failed to see the good man right in front of me." The lobby fell silent. No murmurs, no nervous laughter, just the quiet thrum of HVAC and the faint click of a reporter's camera. Amelia stepped aside from the podium. James approached holding a tablet connected to the large wall display behind him. In a steady voice, he recounted Evelyn Ward's accident, the anonymous rescuer, the months she spent trying to identify him, the creation of the trust. As he spoke, the screen lit up with legal documents, timestamps, trust papers, all bearing Evelyn's name. Finally, the most important line appeared in glowing blue text: "Available balance 18,024,71356, active." Evan stared at the number like it wasn't real. Even Lily blinked at the screen, whispering through her mask, "Daddy." That's a lot. For the first time in days, a small broken laugh escaped him. But the weight of everything didn't let him breathe freely yet. When James stepped away, Amelia returned to the microphone. "The trust includes full medical coverage for Lily." She continued, "housing support and access to a portion of annual interest to assist other working families fighting medical burdens exactly as my mother intended." The crowd nodded, murmured, shifted, but none of them were prepared for what Evan did next. He stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, and addressed the room. His voice wasn't polished, it wasn't rehearsed, but it was real. "I don't know how to process all this," he said quietly. "I'm a janitor. I clean floors. I work the night shift because it's the only way I can be home with my daughter during the day." He paused. "I didn't save your mother for money. I didn't even know her name. I just couldn't let someone die." A few people swallowed hard. Even a reporter lowered his camera. "And today, you're telling me I have $18 million. Enough to save Lily. Enough to save other families." His voice tightened. "That should make this the happiest moment of my life." He glanced at Lily, her eyes soft, hopeful. Then his gaze hardened. Not angry, honest. "But right now, I'm not happy. I'm scared. I don't want this to be a story for your PR team. I don't want to become a poster boy for a bank I barely understand. I just want my daughter to breathe." The lobby fell still, the sincerity in his voice settling over everyone. "I didn't ask for any of this," he finished. "I just came here to buy medicine." His words punched the air out of the room. Amelia felt the hit most. Her chest constricted. She realized painfully that her apology, however sincere, could not undo the trauma she had layered on top of a life already stretched thin. She stepped toward him, voice soft. "Evan, I don't want to use you. I want to make this right." He looked at her not with anger, not with forgiveness, but with a guarded exhaustion. He gently lifted Lily into his arms. "I need time," he said simply. Then he walked away, Lily's small head resting on his shoulder as the crowd parted quietly around them. The marble lobby watched them leave in silence. And as Amelia stood there alone at the podium, apology lingering in the air, one question consumed her. How do you heal a wound when "I'm sorry" isn't enough? The hallway lights of the apartment building flickered as Evan and Lily stepped out of the elevator, their footsteps echoing off chipped walls and stained carpet. The familiar scent of old paint and dusty vents greeted them. Home. At least for now. The news had already reached the building. It spread faster than smoke. The janitor with $18 million, and the moment they walked through the corridor, doors cracked open. Eyes peeked out. Whispers followed. "That's him. No way. Must be some mistake. Good for him, about time luck found that guy." A few neighbors smiled. A few scowled. A few looked at him like he'd suddenly become a stranger in a place he'd lived for years. Lily leaned into his side. "Daddy? Why are people staring?" He forced a smile. "They're just surprised, honey. That's all." She nodded, though she didn't quite understand. Inside the apartment, the air felt heavier. He set Lily's small hospital bag down and locked the door behind them. The old hinges creaked. The radiator clanked. The ceiling fan hummed with its usual wobble. Nothing had changed, except everything had. Evan looked around the cramped living room, peeling wallpaper water stain spreading across the ceiling, a couch held together more by memories than fabric. This place had been his refuge, his failure, his promise, his burden. Every corner held his wife's ghost, her laugh, her warmth, her folded laundry in the months before Lily was born. He stood there, heart twisting. "I don't know if I can leave this place," he whispered to himself. "Feels like leaving her behind." But then he heard Lily cough, a soft but tired sound. Reality pushed forward again. She sat on the couch, unfolding a piece of paper and pulling out her crayons. He watched as she began drawing a small house, bright windows, a tree, a dog, and 3 smiling stick figures holding hands. He whispered, "What's that, kiddo?" "Our new house," she said simply. "The one where the air is better and you don't have to work all night. And maybe we can have a backyard." Her innocence pierced him deeper than any eviction notice ever had. A knock sounded at the door. Evan tensed, expecting a reporter or a neighbor seeking gossip. But when he opened the door, he found James Morales, tired, kind-eyed, holding a thick folder. "May I come in?" James asked gently. Evan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." James stepped inside, taking in the small worn apartment with a slow, respectful glance as if acknowledging the life held within these walls. He looked at Lily, drawing on the couch, and offered her a soft smile. Then he turned to Evan, lowering his voice. "I brought documents. And answers." They sat at the small kitchen table, the folder between them like an unspoken weight. James opened it carefully. "This is everything you need to understand the trust, how it works, what you're allowed to do, what it means." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "Feels like I'm holding someone else's life in my hands." "In a way, you are," James said quietly. "A life your act of kindness made possible." Evan swallowed, not knowing how to respond. James continued. "A trust this large isn't just a gift, it's a responsibility. Evelyn believed you'd know what to do with it." Evan shook his head. "I work 2 jobs. I barely manage rent. I don't know how to handle $18 million. James folded his hands. "Then let me ask you this. If the money didn't intimidate you, what would you want to do?" Evan's gaze drifted to Lily now, coloring a tree with careful strokes. "I want her to breathe," he said quietly. "I want her to have a room without mold on the ceiling. I want her to go to school without worrying if I'll be able to pay for her inhaler." James nodded. "Good. Start there." Silence settled between them, gentle, thoughtful. After a moment, James tapped the folder. "And you should know something else. Amelia is trying. She's changing policies, auditing labor contracts, increasing wages for custodial staff. She's trying to be the woman her mother wanted her to be." Evan didn't answer. His heart wasn't ready to forgive, but it wasn't hardened either. James stood. "You don't owe her trust, but maybe, later you might allow a conversation." Evan exhaled. "Maybe." As James reached the door, he hesitated. "Oh, and something came for you." He handed over the envelope that had been slipped under the corporate door after the apology. It was from the hospital, an updated bill. Evan's throat tightened as he opened it. Then he froze. The balance due read 0.0 endorse, paid in full by the Evelyn Ward Trust. Evan closed his eyes, a weight lifting from his chest he'd forgotten he'd been carrying since the day Lily was born. James nodded. "The trust covers all long-term medical care. She's safe now." When the door shut behind James, the apartment fell quiet again. Evan sank onto the couch beside Lily. She leaned against him, still coloring. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart. Do we have to move?" He hesitated, voice low. "What do you want?" She tapped her drawing. "I want windows that open, and a place we can all fit. And maybe a puppy." He laughed, a sound that surprised even him. "A puppy, huh?" She nodded solemnly. "A small one? One that doesn't sneeze." Evan wrapped an arm around her. "We'll figure it out." As she continued coloring, he picked up the drawing she'd finished earlier, a house with a little sun over the roof, 3 figures smiling beneath it. Beside the house, she'd written in uneven letters, "Home." Something inside him softened something that had been clenched for too long. He looked again at the hospital bill, at the eviction notice still clipped to the fridge, at the trust folder on the counter, then, finally, at the path forward. He took a deep breath and reached for his phone. His voice was steady when Amelia answered. She sounded breathless, as though she'd been waiting. "Mr. Cole." "I want to meet," Evan said. "Not about the money, about what your mother wanted, and what I don't want to mess up." Silence followed, warm, hopeful, uncertain. Then Amelia replied softly, "Tell me where and when." Evan, standing at the window holding Lily's drawing, feeling for the first time in years not the weight of survival, but the hint of possibility. The cafe smelled faintly of roasted beans and warm milk, soft, lived-in aromas that wrapped the small space in a kind of gentle familiarity. It was the kind of place where exhausted nurses grabbed a cup after a night shift and where community volunteers met to plan weekend drives. No polished marble, no glass walls, no echoes of power. Evan chose it on purpose. He didn't want another place that made him feel small. He sat at a corner table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, listening to the quiet clinks of ceramic and the hum of espresso machines. Every sound grounded him. Every breath steadied him. When the door opened, a rush of winter air swept in, followed by Amelia Ward. Not CEO in heels, Amelia. Not immaculate, impenetrable marble lobby Amelia. Just Amelia. Her coat was simple, her hair tied back loosely. She paused at the entrance as her eyes found him, a brief flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. Evan stood slowly. "Ms. Ward." "Amelia," she corrected gently. "Please." He hesitated, then nodded. "Amelia." She approached the table, looking almost unsure of how to place her hands. She slid into the chair across from him, exhaling a breath that felt like she'd been holding it since the apology. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "Thank you for coming," he replied. A silence settled soft but charged like static between two people who didn't yet know how close their lives had begun to overlap. After a moment, Evan cut straight to the truth. "I need to ask you something." She met his eyes. "Anything. If I take this money, all of it, just to take care of my daughter, just to give her a home and medicine and a chance, is that going to disappoint your mother?" Amelia froze. Of all the questions he could have asked, she hadn't expected that one. Her voice softened. "Mr. Cole, my mother built that trust because she believed in you. She believed you'd take care of your daughter first. She would never be disappointed in that, not for a second." Evan's jaw tightened, relief mixed with lingering fear. "Okay." She waited. She sensed there was more. He leaned forward slightly. "But I also don't want to waste something she created to help people. Not just me." Amelia's breath caught a quiet, fragile sound. "So, what do you want to do?" Evan didn't answer immediately. He looked around the cafe, the posters for community drives, the corkboard filled with local families needing help, the donation jar for a child's surgery. Then his gaze returned to her. "I want to build something with it," he said softly. "Something that doesn't just fix our lives for a while. Something that keeps helping families like mine. Families who work hard but still can't outrun medical bills. Families who can't risk getting sick." Amelia listened as if someone had just placed a sacred object in her hands. "What exactly do you have in mind?" she asked. Evan swallowed. This part felt bigger than him, bigger than what he'd ever allowed himself to dream. "I want to start a program. A fund. Something simple at first, help with medications, rent during emergencies, transportation to hospitals. Things people need to survive long enough to catch their breath." He paused, voice thickening. "I want to call it the Evelyn Project." Amelia inhaled sharply, a hand rising involuntarily to her chest. "She saved my mother's life," Evan said, "and her kindness is saving my daughter's. If I'm going to live with that, I want to spend the rest of my life honoring it." A tear slipped down Amelia's cheek, not the restrained, silent kind. A real one. "Mr. Cole." "Evan." Her voice faltered, then steadied. "My mother would be so proud of you." He didn't know what to do with the softness in her voice, so he looked down at his hands. "I don't know how to run something like that. I don't have degrees or training. I just have experience, and a lot of people I've watched struggle for too long." "You won't do it alone," Amelia said. "I'll help. James will help. We'll build a team. Not for the bank's reputation, not for PR. For them." She gestured around the room, families chatting, workers rushing between shifts, tired faces nursing lukewarm coffee. For the people who never get seen. Evan felt a lump rise in his throat. "I don't want it to be fancy. I don't want it to be complicated. I want it to be reachable. Quiet. Helpful. Just like my mother," Amelia whispered. They didn't speak for a moment. Then she stood. "There's somewhere I want to take you." 10 minutes later, they arrived at an old community center. The building looked tired. Bricks, weathered windows, clouded heating vents rattling like worn lungs. Children's laughter echoed faintly through the halls, mixed with the shuffle of volunteers. "This was one of my mother's favorite places," Amelia said quietly. "She held free checkups here. She patched up more scraped knees than I can count." They walked through the hallways. Photos hung on the walls, volunteers, local families, nurses, and then a picture of Evelyn Ward. White coat, warm eyes, a stethoscope around her neck, a hand resting on the shoulder of a little boy with bandaged knees. Evan stopped. The woman who had changed his life with an $18 million signature looked in this photo like someone who would have handed a child a lollipop after a flu shot. Not a billionaire, not a CEO's mother, just human. As they moved deeper inside, an elderly woman sorting donated clothes glanced up, her eyes widening. "Amelia," she breathed. "Sweetheart, is that you?" Amelia blinked slowly. "Mrs. Turner." The old woman hurried over, pulling Amelia into a hug. "Your mother used to bandage my grandson's asthma attacks right in that little room there. She never charged a dime, said kindness should circulate." She touched Amelia's cheek gently. "You've got her eyes, you know, and her stubborn streak." Amelia swallowed hard. "I'm trying, Mrs. Turner," I know the woman whispered. "Your mother always believed in second chances." Evan watched the exchange quietly. It stirred something in him, something like trust, but cautious tender. When the woman walked away, Amelia turned to him. "You see," she said softly, "this is why she created the trust. Not for me, not for the bank, for them." Evan nodded slowly. "And for Lily." A warmth bloomed between them, mutual respect, grief, gratitude, something deeper they didn't know how to name yet. He stepped closer. "Let's build it. The Evelyn Project. Let's make it real." Amelia didn't smile. She softened. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's." But before their agreement could settle into hope, Amelia's phone vibrated sharply. A text from James, a major news network, wants an exclusive interview on the apology. The board is panicking. They want to control the narrative. They want Evan out of the spotlight. Call me immediately. Evan read the message over her shoulder. His jaw clenched. "They're trying to use me again," he said, voice tightening. A storm gathered behind his eyes. What now? Would they fight the narrative and the board together, or would power try to rewrite the truth all over again? Ward Financial hadn't truly been quiet in decades, but on the morning of the interview, the building vibrated with a different kind of tension, hushed, anticipatory, electric. The kind of energy that gathered right before a storm breaks. Camera crews rolled carts across the lobby, microphones tested with faint thumps, cables snaked across the marble floors. Employees watched from behind railings on the mezzanine level, whispering among themselves. A news network logo flashed on LED screens. Every sound, each footstep, each cough, each click of a camera lens felt amplified. In a small prep room off the main hall, Amelia stood with her hands braced on a table, eyes fixed on her reflection in a small mirror. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. She wasn't afraid of the camera. She was afraid of failing the truth. James entered the room quietly. "They're ready for you." She inhaled deeply, gathering herself. "Where's Evan?" "On his way up with Lily." A flicker of something warm moved across her face. Relief, worry, gratitude. It was hard to tell. James eyed her carefully. "The board wanted me to remind you of their suggestions." She sighed. "Their demands, you mean?" He didn't disagree. "They want you to avoid any phrasing that could imply corporate fault. They want the narrative to focus on your leadership, your vision, not your mistake." Amelia let out a humorless breath. "They want me to lie." James held her gaze gently. "They want you to sound like every other CEO in America." She straightened, jaw tightening. "Then I'll do the opposite." Before James could speak, a soft knock sounded. Evan stepped inside. He looked different today. Not in appearance, he still wore his blue coverall, still held himself with the humility of a man who rarely felt welcome in polished places. But something in his eyes had changed. There was a steadiness there now, something like resolve. Lily held his hand, her small oxygen mask clipped to a portable unit, breaths soft but steady. When she saw Amelia, she waved shyly. "Hi, Miss Amelia." Amelia knelt to her level. "Hi, sweetheart. You look stronger today." "I'm drawing again," Lily said proudly. "And Daddy said we're going to help other kids too." The simple truth in her voice hit Amelia harder than any boardroom vote. Evan cleared his throat. "I'm not sure about all this." He nodded toward the set outside. "Feels like walking into someone else's movie." Amelia stood. "Then say what's real. That's enough." He studied her for a moment. "Are they going to try to spin this?" "They'll try," she admitted, "but they won't succeed. Not today." Their eyes held for a beat mutual understanding, mutual fear, mutual courage. A producer poked his head inside. "We're rolling in 60 seconds. The studio lights glowed warm against the polished table in the center of the lobby. Cameras pointed toward 3 chairs, one for the anchor, one for Amelia, one for Evan. People gathered at a distance, watching, waiting. As they took their seats, Lily stood beside James off-camera, holding her drawings like talismans. The anchor, a smooth-voiced man with perfect posture, began the segment with practiced gravitas. "We're here today with Amelia Ward, CEO of Ward Financial, and Evan Cole, a father whose story has captured national attention." Evan's fingers twisted gently together, but his posture held firm. The anchor turned to Amelia first. "Ms. Ward, the country has seen clips of your apology. Many praise it, as brave others call it, damage control. What prompted you to make such a public statement?" Amelia met his gaze without flinching. "Truth," she said simply. "Real truth. Not the curated version corporations like to present." The anchor blinked thrown for a moment. "And what is that truth that I failed?" she said, voice steady. "I treated a working man with disrespect. I let my position blind me. And I hurt someone who deserved compassion." Whispers echoed through the lobby. The anchor recovered, pivoting to Evan. "Mr. Cole, how did you feel when your card was declined at the hospital?" Evan swallowed, eyes softening at the memory. "Like I was drowning. You think having money is security. But I had $18 million I couldn't touch while my daughter struggled to breathe. I felt powerless. Angry, the anchor pressed. "No," Evan replied. "Just desperate. Any parent knows that feeling." He paused. "And I didn't want revenge. I didn't want publicity. I just wanted my child to get the medicine she needed." His words hit the lobby like a quiet hymn, simple, raw, undeniable. The anchor turned back to Amelia. "What changed for you? Why step forward now?" Amelia inhaled. "Because this isn't a story about a mistake. It's a story about my mother and the man who saved her life." This time, the anchor didn't interrupt. "My mother left behind a legacy of compassion, and one day she hoped I would carry it. But I lost my way. Evan's courage, his humility, brought me back to it." A few employees wiped their eyes. The anchor glanced at Evan. "And you, Mr. Cole? You saved her mother." Evan shook his head gently. "I saved a woman in a burning car. I didn't know who she was. I wasn't saving a name. I was saving a life." His voice grew quieter, more intimate. "My wife taught me something before she passed. She said, 'Do good without planning a receipt.' I didn't understand it fully then. I do now." The lobby stilled. Even the camera crew softened their movements. The anchor leaned forward. "And now, with $18 million, do you feel wealthy?" Evan looked toward Lily, her small hands clutching her drawings, her eyes bright behind the mask. Then he looked at Amelia, steady, open, changed. When he answered, it wasn't rehearsed. "Money didn't make me wealthy," he said. "Knowing my daughter will wake up tomorrow without an asthma attack making her gasps sound like tearing paper, that feels like wealth." Emotion rippled through the crowd. He continued, voice thick but sure. "And knowing I can help other families like mine that their kids can breathe easier, sleep safer, that feels like purpose." The anchor nodded slowly. "What's next for both of you?" Amelia spoke first. "We're launching the Evelyn Project, a community initiative to support working families battling medical hardship." Evan added, "We're starting small. Help with medication, housing, transportation. Little things that keep people alive long enough to hope." The anchor smiled, not media smile, but genuine, powerful. But before he could close the interview, a hush fell across the lobby as several board members emerged from the mezzanine level, arms crossed, faces tight. Their presence sent a cold ripple through the room. The anchor's brows lifted. It appears some executives have joined us. James stepped forward, quickly, tension clear on his face. Evan and Amelia exchanged a look, one filled with unspoken understanding. This wasn't over, not even close. The board was about to push back. The special shareholders meeting was held in the largest conference hall Ward Financial owned, an echoing chamber with ceilings high enough to swallow a man's courage whole. Rows of leather chairs lined the room like a silent jury. The murmur of expensive suits, rustling papers, and hushed indignation created a low, simmering tension that clung to the air. Amelia stood at the head of the long table, hands resting lightly on its polished surface. She could hear the microphone hum, feel the weight of every pair of eyes narrowed in her direction. It wasn't fear she carried now, just clarity, and clarity had its own kind of steel. Caldwell was first to speak, as everyone expected. This emergency meeting, he began, voice thick with cynicism, is to address the growing concern. No, let's call it what it is. The growing alarm that Ward Financial is turning into a social experiment rather than a bank. Several shareholders nodded. We've received complaints from major investors worried that our CEO is using corporate assets to stage a redemption arc, he continued. This Evelyn project will cost millions in profit. It's not a bank asset, Amelia said calmly. Not 1 cent of that $18 million came from this institution. It was my mother's personal trust. That may be, Caldwell countered sharply, but you are branding it under this company, attaching our name to your personal guilt. A ripple of murmurs followed. Another shareholder stood, voice slick with condescension. Ms. Ward, no one is saying your emotional awakening isn't touching, but we cannot build our future on sentimental stories. We must protect our bottom line. Amelia held his gaze. When did protecting the bottom line become more important than protecting human beings? That earned a scoff. You're letting a janitor dictate our policy, the shareholder barked. And we cannot afford, Amelia straightened. You don't get to speak about Evan Cole like that. Silence dropped like a stone. It wasn't just defense, it was conviction, sharp, unyielding. Caldwell folded his arms. We have 2 proposals on the table. The board will vote. He clicked a button, and the screen behind him lit up. Proposal 1. Reduce the Evelyn project to a small symbolic CSR program. Safe, controlled, sanitized, aesthetic charity. Proposal 2. Fully support Amelia's reforms, expanded support for labor workers, health care stipends, emergency grants, mental health advocates, all tied to the spirit of Evelyn Ward's work. A quiet war crackled beneath those words. For the record, Caldwell added, we recommend Proposal 1. Amelia didn't flinch. I recommend Proposal 2. And why? Ms. Ward Caldwell sneered. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. Because my mother believed wealth meant nothing unless it lifted the people beneath its shadow. Because we've forgotten who actually keeps this institution running. The janitors, security clerks, drivers, people like Evan, people like my mother used to help. Caldwell opened his mouth to retort, but the doors at the back of the hall opened. James stepped in, followed by 3 guests. First, a single mother with tired eyes but a proud posture. Next, a retired janitor walking carefully with a cane. And then Evan, in his blue coverall, holding Lily's hand. Gasps rippled like wind across a field. James addressed the room. I invited individuals whose stories reflect the heart of this conversation. They deserve to be heard. Caldwell bristled. This is highly irregular. It's highly necessary, James replied. The single mother stepped forward. Evelyn Ward saved my son's life, paid for his surgery when we had nothing. She didn't ask for anything in return. She just told me to pay it forward one day. Her voice cracked. You can't let her legacy die in a boardroom. The retired janitor spoke next. Evelyn made sure my daughter could afford college. She believed every child deserved a chance, not just the rich ones. Finally, Evan stepped to the microphone. Lily stood beside him, tiny fingers curled around his hand. Evan cleared his throat. I never wanted to speak here. I'm not good with crowds. I'm a man who cleans floors and tries not to get in the way. He took a slow breath. But I'm also a father. And until a few days ago I thought the world didn't care about people like me. Then I learned someone did your founder. Faces softened. A few shifted uncomfortably. I don't want pity, Evan said. I don't want attention. I want. He looked at Lily. A world where people like my daughter don't have to fight so hard to stay alive. His voice deepened with quiet fire. You talk about bottom lines. I talk about bottom breaths. The ones a kid takes when they're trying and failing to breathe through an asthma attack because their dad can't afford the medicine. The room stilled. If some of your profit, just a tiny piece, can help the children of the people who clean your halls, guard your doors, process your documents, then don't call it charity. He swallowed. Call it a responsibility. A silence heavy with truth stretched across the room. Then, slowly, an elderly shareholder, the one who'd once sparred with Evelyn in philosophy debates, stood. Wealth, he said, voice shaking, is the ability to improve the lives of others. That's what your mother believed, Amelia. And that's what this institution has forgotten. He raised a trembling hand. I vote for Proposal 2. One by one, after hesitation, after murmurs, the votes shifted. Proposal 2 passed. By 3 votes. Just 3. A breath Amelia didn't realize she'd been holding escaped her. Evan exhaled too, but his relief was quieter, deeper shaped, like a man learning to hope again. Later that afternoon, Amelia, Evan, and Lily drove to a peaceful cemetery on the edge of the city. Winter wind brushed gently across rows of headstones. Dry leaves whispered against the path. They approached Evelyn Ward's grave, simple, elegant, loving. Amelia knelt first. Mom. I read your letter. I heard every word. I hope her voice trembled. I hope I made you proud today. Evan stepped forward holding something wrapped in cloth. He knelt beside the grave and placed it on the stone. A pair of old fire-scorched gloves, the ones he wore the night he pulled Evelyn Ward from the burning car. I think I can finally let these go, he whispered. Then Lily stepped up and carefully placed her drawing on the grave, 3 people holding hands beneath a bright sun. Thank you, Dr. Evelyn, she said softly. The wind paused, just for a moment, like a blessing. As they walked back toward the car, Lily tugged Evan's sleeve. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart, can Miss Amelia have dinner with us? Grandma Evelyn would like that, I think. Evan and Amelia exchanged a look, unexpected, warm, and lingering. An open door, a new beginning, a family reshaping itself in the quiet glow of second chances. Chapter 11. A different kind of balance. Spring arrived quietly, soft breezes drifting through cracked windows, children laughing in the distance, the faint hum of a world beginning to thaw. It had been 3 months since the board vote, 3 months since the Evelyn Project officially opened its doors inside a renovated brick building on Maple Street. The center didn't look like a bank facility. It didn't look like a clinic. It looked like a place built for breathing again. The front lobby buzzed with gentle noise phones ringing, children giggling in the play corner, a coffee machine sputtering warm cups for exhausted parents. The walls were lined with community artwork photographs of families who'd received help, and a simple framed portrait of Dr. Evelyn Ward smiling at the camera as though she was still rooting for everyone in the room. Evan walked through the center with a clipboard tucked beneath his arm. He wore a navy polo shirt with the Evelyn Project embroidered in clean white stitching, simple, easy, unpretentious. The kind of shirt meant for someone who didn't mind rolling up his sleeves and mopping up a spill in the hallway before a nurse slipped on it. Morning, Evan called a volunteer as she sorted donated inhalers. Morning, he replied, checking the day's schedule. You need help restocking the emergency kits, I've got it. Go check the intake room, family of 4 just arrived. He nodded. He'd become the center's anchor, a coordinator, a listener, a steady presence who knew exactly what desperation in a parent's eyes looked like because he'd lived it. But he was still the man who, when a child spilled juice onto the polished floor, wordlessly grabbed a mop and cleaned it up without hesitation. Not because he had to, because that's who he was. He stepped into the hallway and heard laughter from the art room. A softer laugh followed a laugh he recognized instantly. Lily. He peeked inside. She sat at a large table coloring alongside two kids recovering from long-term asthma treatments. Her cheeks were rosy again. Her breaths easy. A small portable inhaler clipped to her pocket but barely used these days. She looked up as he entered. "Daddy?" "Look, I drew us helping other kids." The picture showed three stick figures passing a heart-shaped balloon to a group of children. The son was bright smiling, wearing sunglasses. He kissed the top of her head. "You're getting really good at those drawings." "And Miss Amelia says she'll put it on the wall next to Grandma Evelyn's picture," Lily added proudly. Before Evan could respond, he heard footsteps behind him, confident, familiar, steady. Amelia leaned against the doorframe holding a folder of new grant applications. The past months had softened her edges, warmed her voice, changed the lines in her face, not worn ones, but renewed ones. As though she'd shed a weight she'd carried her whole adult life. "Your daughter is running the art room now," she teased lightly. "I might need to put her on payroll." Lily gasped. "Do I get health benefits if I work here?" Amelia smiled. "Absolutely. Best in the city." They all laughed. The sound lingered, filling the room like sunlight. Later that afternoon, Evan and Amelia walked through the center's main hallway past families meeting with counselors, volunteers packing medication bags, nurses checking vitals. Each sound mattered. Each need mattered. "You've created something remarkable," Amelia said softly. "We created it," Evan corrected. "Your mother dreamed it. You carried it. I'm just trying not to mess it up." She stopped him gently. "Evan, you've done more than that. You've given people hope. You've given me hope." He looked at her, overwhelmed by the honesty in her voice. "I spent years measuring worth by the wrong metrics," she continued. "Stock prices, prestige, control. But your life, your love for Lily, showed me something different." He swallowed, his heart tightening. "What's that?" "That balance isn't a number in an account." She took a breath. "It's who you become when the world forces you to choose between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be." The words echoed in him, not as a lesson, as truth. Before he could respond, Lily came running down the hallway waving a flyer. "Daddy, Miss Amelia, we're starting the after-school snack program next week. Do you want to help? Pick the snacks." Evan scooped her up. "Let me guess, cookies and apples," she added innocently. "Miss Amelia says we need something healthy too." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Smart girl." Lily beamed. Grandma Evelyn would want it that way. Something in Amelia's eyes shimmered. Not sadness, not grief. Something softer. Healing. "Yeah," she whispered. She would. That evening, Evan, Lily, and Amelia drove to the small cozy house Evan had purchased, nothing extravagant. Just clean walls, a safe neighborhood windows that opened easily, and enough space for Lily to finally have her own room. Inside the kitchen, the radio played a soft, old tune, gentle piano notes drifting through the warm air. Evan set the table while Lily placed napkins with intense concentration, her tongue poking out the way she always did when focused. Amelia carried a tray of simple food roast chicken vegetables warm rolls. She set it down and glanced around the house. "You did good," she whispered. "It feels like home." Evan met her eyes. "It is. And you're part of that." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Lily tugged on Amelia's sleeve. "Sit next to me. Daddy burns bread sometimes." Evan groaned. "I did that one time." Twice, Lily corrected. They all laughed again, natural, unforced, the sound of something taking shape silently, gently. As they sat down at the table, Evan felt something settle in his chest, a kind of quiet he'd never allowed himself to feel before. Not the quiet of fear or uncertainty or exhaustion, but peace. Real peace. He looked at Amelia, at Lily, at the warm kitchen, at the life he hadn't dared to imagine. And for the first time he understood he wasn't surviving anymore. He was living. He spoke softly more to himself than anyone else. You know, months ago I walked into that bank just to ask what was in my account. I thought I was asking about money. Turns out I was asking about something else entirely. Amelia leaned in listening. I was asking what my life was worth, what my daughter was worth, what kindness still meant in this world. He paused, voice trembling slightly. And somehow, I got my answer. He looked at Lily, breathing easily, laughing freely. That's my real balance. His hand brushed Amelia's. She didn't pull away. Lily clapped her hands. Time to eat. Evan squeezed Amelia's hand gently. Yeah, he said softly, looking at both of them. Let's eat. The radio continued its quiet melody as the scene pulled back their laughter, mixing with the hum of a tiny home filled with second chances. The richest accounts we carry aren't the ones in banks, but the ones we make in the hearts of the people we love. Before we close this story, I want to leave you with something to carry into your own life. Some people check their bank balance to see how much money they have. But the truth is, our real balance is measured in something far quieter. It's in the people we help, the kindness we choose when no one is watching, the moments we decide to show up for someone who can't breathe on their own, literally or emotionally. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone in your life who stood by you, or someone you stood up for, I'd love to hear it. Your story might be exactly the encouragement another viewer needs today. So please share your thoughts in the comments. Share your experiences. Share your battles and your victories. And let us know, where are you watching from tonight? Our community stretches across states and countries, and it's always beautiful to see how far these stories travel. If this message warmed your heart, if it reminded you that compassion still has a place in this world, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Every week, we bring you new journeys of hope, redemption, and second chances stories that remind us what it means to be human. Thank you, truly, for spending your time with this video. Thank you for listening, feeling, and walking beside these characters. Your presence here means more than you know. Take care of yourself tonight. Take care of the people you love. And remember, kindness is the only currency that never runs out.